Fitness in Hoover. I work here. I'm not on the clock, so I have a little time before my classes. I wanted to share something. This is for my clients, but I'm making this a public video so that I can educate. I want to elevate you. That's my job as a personal trainer. Before I begin, quick disclaimer. Do please consult your doctor before you begin any kind of new exercise program, because your cardiovascular health is number one. So just a quick disclaimer here, I'm not a doctor. Make sure you do consult your doctor. If you're not already working out, you want to make sure that you are cleared for exercise. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about cardiovascular training zones. Some of you have the little fitness trackers that you wear, and some of you do not. So before I begin, let me just start off with, if you don't have a fitness tracker, that's okay. You don't have to run out and buy one. I'm going to explain this in a digestible fashion so that you can understand it without having to purchase an item. However, if it's in your budget, it's a great investment to have one, because you can actually see your training zones, and it's color coded usually in the app, or it shows you the intervals of your training zones, and it's very motivating to know exactly what is happening in your body. So I'm going to tell you the formula to get to your max heart rate. Before I start explaining deeper into this, let me just say, when you are doing your cardiovascular or fitness training, max heart rate is not your target, not your goal. Your max heart rate is what you do not want to exceed over. And this is different for everybody, okay? So it's typically is 220 minus your age is the formula. So that means for a 20-year-old, 220 minus 20, they would not want to max their heart rate over 200 would be the limit. And for my age, I'm 46. 220 minus 46 is 174. So I would not want to go over 174 beats per minute. What does that mean? So I'm going to tell you about the zones. I'm going to explain it first on a rate of perceived exertion scale. That means if you're not wearing a fitness tracker, imagine your effort level is on a scale of 1 to 5. When you're at 5, you're at maximum effort. When you're at 1, that is like the easiest workout you could do. Or maybe 1 would be just walking slowly on the treadmill or riding the bicycle very slowly. So zone 1 is 50 to 65% of your max heart rate, or a level of effort around 1 or 2 stars if 5 stars was maximum effort. Level 2 or zone 2 would be like a 3-star effort out of 5 stars. Okay, and then your zone 3, or sometimes the above and beyond zone 4, that would be like 4 or 5 stars. Like zone 4 would be the 5-star effort. The maximum effort you could give, where you're actually like deep breathing, trying to catch your breath because you're working your cardiovascular stamina so hard. Something like sprints. You don't really want to stay in the 85% and above range for a long period of time. It's better to do reaching your anaerobic threshold in like short sprints for like, say, 30 to 60 seconds at a time. So I'm just going to give you some numbers. Of course, I gave you the example of 220 minus a 20-year-old would be 200 max. So for a 20-year-old client, their zone 1 training would be 50 to 65% of that max heart rate number. So 50 to 65% of 200, their heart rate would be somewhere around 100 to 130 beats per minute in effort level or zone 1. And for zone 2, that same 20-year-old would, to get to 65 to 75% of their max heart rate, it would be somewhere around the neighborhood of 131 to 150. And to get to zone 3, the peak cardio zone, their heart rate would be somewhere around 151 to 170, okay? But they don't really want to go over 200, because 200 would be the 20-year-old's max. Like, don't go over the max. Now for me, I'm 46. Like I said, the max number I don't want to go over for my age with the formula would be 174. That means in training zone 1, for my 60 or 50 to 65%, I should say, to do 50 to 65% of my 174, that would be around 87 to 113. To get to zone 2 for my age of 46, that would be the 65 to 75%. My heart rate should be around 114 to 129. And for my peak zone, zone 3, the highest level of effort, maximum effort, my heart rate should be somewhere around 130 to 147. Now you notice I said somewhere around because not everyone is exactly the same. If you have a higher resting heart rate or if you have high blood pressure, I would say try to stay on the lower end of the numbers because it is kind of sometimes we give you a broader scale. Like some cycling coaches, they may say, we're going 50 to 70%. Maybe they'll give a broader range for your scale to kind of give you a gauge of where your heart rate needs to be. So the most important thing here is to listen to your body and make sure that you understand where your training zone should be and really mix up your practice with your cardio. You don't want to stay in the same zone all the time. However, you don't want to stay in the maximum zone all the time either. You want to still have times where you are training for endurance, maybe a long cardio session in zone 1 to prepare you for your next cardiovascular training where maybe you would do some intervals to get to your peak zone. So it's different for everybody. I actually have a lot of different charts for cardio programming. If you're doing strength training, please know that it's important to have a good cardio programming in place to help you with your strength training. So never discount the idea of the possibility, if you're not doing cardio, to include more cardiovascular training because cardiovascular health is still the #1 issue in our health in America. So please make sure that you are thinking about your good heart health. If you can get a fitness tracker and you don't already have one, do consider getting that as some sort of motivation for you because it will help you to see how many calories you burn with each session. It's going to show you your cardio zones, which I have just explained in a very organized fashion. And every time that you work out, you can always look back and see how hard that your heart rate was showing that you were working. All right, so that's in a nutshell. Just take 220, subtract your age, and to find your zone 1, it would be 50 to 65% of that number. To find your zone 2, it would be 65 to 75% of your max heart rate number. And to get to zone 3, it would be 75 to 85% of your max heart rate number. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask in the comments. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all of my clients and everyone that comes to my classes and supports my journey. I thank you for your time and thank you for subscribing. Have a beautiful day. May we come together to be happy, healed, peaceful, and free.